I want to talk about the types of damages that can actually be incurred under the statute and be recovered. Basically, there are 4 baskets, and those are, we've been discussed in some ways in different perspectives here this morning. I'm going to go into them a little bit more detail, so we'll be ready to get into them in terms of how they interact with different areas. In particular, the 4 baskets are 1, actual response cost, 2, damages, which is basically any other kind of recovered cost other than the removal cost, 3, tort damages, and last, civil and criminal penalties. Here's the actual definition of removal cost. It is broad, but basically it boils down to one thing. It's basically any cost related to actually getting the oil out of the water or getting it off of the shore. It is extremely broad, but it also has an interesting consequence in that removal costs are treated differently under the Oil Pollution Act than other baskets of costs. In particular, for an offshore facility, the Oil Pollution Act is very clear in designating a particular set of individuals as liable for removal cost. Namely, as you can see, is the lessee or permittee of the area for which the facility is located. Now here, of course, everyone's aware that BP holds the lease that's here, and it has been designated by the U.S. Coast Guard as a primary responsible party. It is interesting to note, though, that the statute doesn't say that the liability is only to just the primary leaseholder. It doesn't distinguish between primary and secondary. So the issue remains undefined in the statute as to the extent of liability for co-owners in the lease. And we'll talk about that in a minute in terms of how that extends to the shared liability between the parties. Last, as well, keep in mind that the Oil Pollution Act not only makes the federal and state governments claimants to recover their removal cost, but also anybody who is a private individual who is spending money to get oil out of the water or off of their property, or to respond to the release, also has an Oil Pollution Act claim and can take advantage of some of the strongest features of the statute to bring those claims. There is one important difference. As opposed to the federal and state governments, a private individual not only has to demonstrate that their claim reflects a cost necessary to remove the oil, he also has to show, or she has to show, that it is consistent with the National Contingency Plan. For those of you who are dealing with the Clean Water Act or Superfund issues in the past, this will be a familiar term. The National Contingency Plan basically is the roadmap for outlining how cleanup response actions have to be undertaken under the federal statutes.